Parents, imagine growing up in a world where no one truly sees who you are, not your joy, your pain, or your fear. Now, what if I told you that this invisible wound, often called emotional neglect, can shape everything from your self-esteem to your ability to form relationships? And the scariest part, most of the time it's happening in homes that seem perfectly normal. In today's video, we're diving into the hidden impacts of emotional neglect, how to recognize the signs, and most importantly, how to heal. Trust me, this is something every parent and every person need to understand. I am Dr. Taniesha Burke, your positive parenting coach, and welcome to our channel. Are you a subscriber? If you're not, we encourage you to subscribe and join our growing positive parenting family from across the world. Emotional neglect is a subtle yet significant form of childhood maltreatment that can have long-lasting effects on a child's mental, emotional, and even physical well-being. Unlike physical abuse or neglect, emotional neglect is often harder to recognize because it involves absence of emotional support rather than overt actions of harm. However, the impact of emotional neglect is just as profound, if not more, as it directly shapes a child's ability to regulate emotions, develop self-esteem, and form healthy relationships. So to get a better understanding, let's look at some more details of emotional neglect. Emotional neglect occurs when a child's emotional needs are consistently ignored, invalidated, or unmet by their caregivers. This might mean a lack of affection, failure to acknowledge the child's feelings, or an absence of emotional support during critical moments. Unlike physical neglect, where the absence of food or shelter is apparent, emotional neglect is often invisible to outsiders and sometimes even to the family involved. Now, you might be wondering, what are the signs of emotional neglect? They include failure to respond to a child's emotional needs, lack of validation or acknowledgement of emotions, inconsistent or emotionally distant caregiving, discouragement of emotional expression, especially negative emotions, and 5, indifference to a child's distress. Now that you have a clearer understanding of the characteristics of emotional neglect, your next question might be, what are the impacts on a child's emotional, psychological, social development? So let's look at a few of those. Emotionally neglected children have attachment and trust issues. Children rely on their caregivers to create secure attachment bonds, which are the foundation of healthy emotional development. Emotional neglect disrupts this formation of secure attachment, often leading to insecure attachment styles, example, avoidant or anxious attachment. A study published in the Journal of Child Psychology and Psychiatry found that emotionally neglected children are at a higher risk of developing disorganized attachment, where they struggle to trust others and may either cling to or withdraw from relationships. Emotionally neglected children also have emotional dysregulation issues. A child who does not receive adequate emotional support will struggle to understand and regulate their emotions. Research has shown that early emotional neglect can impair the development of the brain's emotional regulation systems. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for regulating emotions, and the amygdala, involved in emotional processing, may be underdeveloped or function abnormally in emotionally neglected children. As a result, these children may experience frequent emotional outbursts, anxiety, or an inability to cope with stress. According to a study published in Child Development, emotionally neglected children show higher levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, which indicates that their bodies are in a state of chronic stress. This chronic stress can impair learning, memory, and physical health. Another effect is low self-esteem and self-worth. When children do not receive validation and support from their caregivers, they often internalize the message that their feelings, thoughts, and experiences don't matter. Over time, this erodes their sense of self-worth. Studies, including one from Personality and Individual Differences Journal, have found a strong correlation between emotional neglect in early years and the development of low self-esteem. These children may grow up feeling inadequate, unlovable, or unworthy of attention, which can lead to difficulties in later relationships and career success. Increased risk of mental health issues is also an effect of emotional neglect. Children who experience emotional neglect are at a higher risk of developing a range of mental health issues, including depression, anxiety disorders, and personality disorders. A long-term study also found that emotional neglect during childhood is a significant predictor of major depressive disorders and anxiety disorders in adulthood. Moreover, emotionally neglected children are more likely to engage in maladaptive coping mechanisms such as substance abuse, self-harm, or disordered eating as they seek to numb or manage their unprocessed emotions. The fifth effect we will look at today is difficulty with social relationships. Children who grow up emotionally neglected often struggle to form and maintain healthy relationships. They may have difficulties understanding social cues, empathizing with others, or regulating their emotions during interpersonal conflict. A research in psychopathology also shows that these children tend to have poor social competence, leading to challenges in forming friendships, romantic relationships, and often professional connections in adulthood. Recognizing emotional neglect is not always straightforward, but there are several key signs that parents, caregivers, and professionals can look out for. The first sign of emotional neglect is emotional flatness or withdrawal. A child may appear unusually distant, withdrawn, or uninterested in social interactions. A second sign is overcompliance or people-pleasing. Emotionally neglected children often become overly compliant, eager to please others in order to gain approval or avoid conflict. The third sign is difficulty expressing emotions. They may have trouble identifying or articulating their own emotions and may struggle to express their needs. Also, they may show frequent anxiety or fear of rejection. Emotionally neglected children often show signs of anxiety, particularly in social situations, due to the underlying fear of rejection or abandonment. Low self-esteem or self-criticism is also another sign. A consistent theme of self-doubt, insecurity, or self-criticism may emerge in their thoughts and behaviors. The final sign of emotionally neglected children is the difficulty in trusting others. Emotionally neglected children may struggle to form trusting relationships and may expect abandonment or betrayal. The effects of emotional neglect can be profound, but the good news is that healing and recovery are possible. Parents, caregivers, and professionals can take specific steps to help children and adults who experience neglect in childhood develop emotional resilience and healthy relationships. Our first tip is to foster emotional awareness. Parents and caregivers can actively work to validate their children's emotions, helping them to identify and express their feelings in a healthy way. This involves actively listening, acknowledging a child's emotions, and allowing space for them to express both positive and negative feelings without fear of punishment or dismissal. Our second tip is to build a secure attachment. Rebuilding a sense of trust and safety is critical for children who have experienced emotional neglect. Parents can create a more secure attachment by consistently being responsive to their children's needs, offering physical affection, and being emotionally available. Therapy, especially attachment-based therapy, can help foster this process. Also, teach emotional regulation. Children who have been emotionally neglected often need extra help learning how to manage their emotions. Mindfulness practices, emotional coaching, and emotionally focused therapy can help children and adults develop the skills needed to regulate their emotional responses and cope with stress in healthier ways. Fourth, therapeutic interventions. For children and adults who have experienced significant emotional neglect, therapy can play a crucial role in healing. Cognitive behavioral therapy, such as CBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT, and trauma-informed therapies are effective approaches to help individuals process and overcome the long-term effects of emotional neglect. Our fifth and final tip is to encourage social skills and healthy relationships. Rebuilding trust and learning how to form healthy relationships is essential for children recovering from emotional neglect. Parents and therapists can encourage social skill development through role-playing, social skills training, and encouraging healthy peer interactions. Early emotional neglect has far-reaching consequences that can affect every aspect of a child's development, from their ability to form attachments and regulate emotions to their self-esteem and mental health. However, recognizing the signs of emotional neglect and taking proactive steps to address these issues, parents, caregivers, and professionals can help children recover and thrive. Emotional neglect is not always easy to see, but with understanding, intervention, and support, it's possible to reverse the damage and help children and also adults build emotionally fulfilling lives. We're now at the end of our video, and we hope that you are better informed on the signs and consequences of emotional neglect and how you can heal it. We also have additional resource for you. As you can see on your screen is a photo of our parenting journal that's available on all Amazon platforms. This journal helps parents become more reflective and connected to their children through the daily activities that's provided. So even if you're not experiencing emotional neglect with your children, or you didn't experience it as a child, you can still buy the journal to help you to build a closer relationship with your children. And as a bonus, when your children are adults, you can give them this journal so that they can see what it was like parenting them at a particular age. Thank you so much for joining us, and goodbye for now.